From Washington, here is the news in VOA Special English. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad repeated his support for a political solution to the country's civil war in a rare public speech Sunday. He called opposition forces terrorists and urged Syrians to fight them.
السادة رئيس وأعضاء الحكومة السادة رؤساء وأعضاء قيادات المنظمات الشعبية.
It was his first speech to the nation since June. He told loyalists gathered in the capital Damascus that he is ready to hold a national conference as part of a political process leading to a new constitution and elections. An American State Department spokeswoman said Mr. Assad's plan for a reconciliation conference is, in her words, detached from reality. Israel's prime minister says a security fence should be built in the Golan Heights to separate land controlled by Israel from Syria. Benjamin Netanyahu announced the proposal at a cabinet meeting Sunday. He said the new fence is needed because the Syrian army has withdrawn and, in his words, global Jihad operatives have taken its place. Officials in southern Afghanistan say 2 suicide attackers have killed at least 5 people and wounded at least 15. The 2 bombers went to a meeting of tribal leaders at a government center Sunday in the town of Spin-Baldak in Kandahar province. The town is near the Pakistani border. Militants can easily enter Kandahar province from Pakistan. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. Afghan President Hamid Karzai will meet with President Obama in Washington Monday to talk about Afghanistan's future after American troops leave the country next year. On Saturday, Mr. Karzai met in the capital, Kabul, with some American senators. His office said they talked about the security agreement between the 2 countries and the peace process in Afghanistan. Egypt's President Mohamed Morsi has increased the number of ministers in his cabinet who are members of the Muslim Brotherhood. 10 ministers were sworn in on Sunday. 3 of them are members of the Brotherhood movement. A Brotherhood spokesman said this increases the number of ministers who belong to the movement from 5 to 8. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. The South African government has approved the deployment of 400 troops to the Central African Republic. Rebels have been threatening the country's central government. The office of President Jacob Zuma released a statement Sunday. It said the deployment is part of its international obligation to the country. It says the troops will help strengthen the Central African Republic's defense force. The South African troops are to be in the country until the end of March. They will join troops from Chad, who are already in the country. The rebels are to begin peace talks with government officials and opposition leaders Tuesday in Libreville, Gabon. Former South African President Nelson Mandela has recovered from his recent lung infection and surgery to remove gallstones. A statement from the office of President Jacob Zuma says Mr. Mandela's health continues to improve. The 94-year-old former political prisoner is receiving care at his home in Johannesburg. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks in December. The father of the Indian woman who died after being gang raped wants his daughter's name to be made public. The father told a British newspaper that his daughter did not do anything wrong. He says she died trying to protect herself. He hopes the publication of her name will give other sexual crime victims the strength to come forward and bring their attackers to justice. Indian law does not permit sex crime victims to be named. Officials in northern Pakistan say bombs from a pilotless American plane have killed at least 9 people suspected of being Taliban fighters. The officials say several missiles were fired into 3 hiding places Sunday in the South Waziristan tribal area. The Pakistani government criticizes these drone attacks as a violation of its territorial independence. However, the attacks are believed to be carried out with the help of Pakistani intelligence. A well-known Pakistani religious teacher and researcher has died. Qazi Hussain Ahmed was the chief of Jamaat-e-Ismaili, Pakistan's leading religious group, for 22 years before leaving the position in 2009. In November, Ahmed escaped without injuries after a suicide bomber tried to kill him by setting off explosives near him. Ahmed was a strong critic of the involvement of the United States and NATO in Afghanistan's civil war. He died Sunday morning in Islamabad after suffering from heart disease for years. He was 74 years old. The oldest person in the United States has died. Mamie Reardon was 114 years old. She was born on September 7, 1898, in a small town in the southeastern state of South Carolina. She lived in the town all of her life. She had been named the oldest person in the United States just 2 weeks ago. Ms. Reardon was a school teacher for several years before giving up her career to marry and have children. She and her husband were married for 59 years until he died in 1979. They had 11 children. 10 of them are still alive. Ms. Reardon learned how to drive a car when she was 65 years old. After learning to drive, she volunteered for a community program that searched for children whose parents were keeping them from going to school.